So instead of asking, why is my libido gone? Or where did my partner's libido go? We can try asking the question, when did pleasure, fun, enjoyment stop becoming a part of my life or stop becoming a part of my partner's life? Hello, bibs. Welcome back to the Sex After Kids podcast. Today, we're talking about something that I hear from clients or directly or from their partners, which is I just don't care about sex anymore, or I could go the rest of my life without it. And sometimes people say it with sadness. Sometimes they say it with relief. Sometimes they say it with a lot of guilt because their partner still cares deeply about sex. And I was actually just looking at some research lately that says that most people, I think about 70%, care about having a sex life into their 60s and 70s. So when couples land in this dynamic, it's really easy to label one partner as the higher libido partner and the other one as the lower libido partner. But today I want to kind of introduce a different angle or a slightly different idea, which is that it might not be entirely about libido, right? This can be about what I call your relationship to pleasure. Because when I start digging into people's stories, I find that for many adults, especially parents, regardless of the kind of genitals that you have, pleasure has kind of quietly disappeared from their life long before sex did. And if any of you have watched Inside Out 2, which I just recently watched, there's a moment where Joy, the character in the brain of this preteen girl, is like, maybe there's just no room for joy in adulthood. I'm here to debunk that, okay? There's lots of room for joy. But once pleasure disappears, desire has a hard time finding its way to the forefront. So I want you to kind of think about the messages that most of us absorbed growing up about the word pleasure. Like, what even comes to mind when you hear the word pleasure? Probably sex, because it was rarely framed as something important or healthy, right? Instead, we hear things like don't be selfish, don't be indulgent, be responsible, work hard, take care of other people, be a good provider. And then when adulthood arrives, the pressure multiplies. We've got careers, we've got households, we've got children, we've got aging parents. We've got balancing the mental load and just like taking care of all of the things. And suddenly, most adults are spending their entire day responding to other people's needs, but also thinking in very logistical modes of schedules and emails and homework and bedtime routines and getting our children to eat well and all the things. And so our nervous systems become trained to operate in caretaker mode, which means putting other people first mode, right? And caretaker mode is wonderful for running a family. We need it, but it is not the mental state where erotic desire thrives for plenty of reasons. Right? Caretaker mode loves routine, it loves predictability. Erotic loves different. But desire lives in, right? Because desire lives in a completely different part of the nervous system. It lives in curiosity, it lives in play, it lives in sensory awareness, it lives in enjoyment, intention, and distance. And the problem is that most of us have learned how to shut those things down. We shut down our sense of wonder, our sense of desire, our sense of allowing ourselves things. And when I talk to couples about this, I often ask sort of the simple question of like, what do you do for fun? Often the answer is silence or a shrug or something like, we don't know, we watch TV. Or we go out on date nights and we just talk about the kids and logistics all night. We don't actually have like belly laughing fun together. And this is where I want to kind of pause for a moment because this dynamic doesn't also just only show up for women or moms. I can see this with men too, right? So you can have a partner of either sex, of either gender, who is checking out, choosing TV, choosing video games, choosing scrolling, choosing zoning out. And when you ask them what they would actually like to do, what might feel fun or interesting or energizing, they like genuinely struggle to name something. That is not laziness. That is a sign that their relationship to pleasure has gone offline. And maybe even they're in a bit of burnout, right? Their nervous system has been in this kind of stress mode and logistics mode for so long that it's forgetting how to kind of access enjoyment and it's forgetting the medicine that enjoyment and pleasure can offer. And so when that happens, sex often disappears with it because everything else It goes away with everything else that used to feel fun. So instead of asking, why is my libido gone? Or where did my partner's libido go? We can try asking the question, when did pleasure, fun, enjoyment, joy stop becoming a part of my life or stop becoming a part of my partner's life? Because desire is actually a byproduct of pleasure. And if pleasure disappears, then usually desire, sexual desire, is going to follow out the door. There's another element to kind of this relationship to pleasure that I think is important to understand. And our bodies all have kind of like their own capacity for pleasure, their own ability to enjoy the feeling of pleasure, if that makes sense. So when we are relaxed and regulated, that capacity expands. But when we are stressed, overwhelmed, or exhausted, that capacity shrinks up. As an example, have you ever woken up already grumpy? Your partner tries to joke with you or be a little bit playful and flirty, and you shoot them a like, fuck no look with your eyes. This is not because your partner did something wrong, although maybe they didn't quite read the room. Your body simply was in a stress state or wasn't in the mood for pleasure that they were trying to offer. Your nervous system was in protection mode, not enjoyment mode, and that's a biological response. But there is a hopeful part, and I actually did a whole episode on this called Sex or Stress that I'll link to. But when we intentionally bring small moments of levity, fun, and enjoyment, guilt-free, back into our lives, our bodies benefit tremendously, right? Because pleasure is not just emotional, it is biological medicine. It shifts hormones, it lowers stress, it helps the nervous system regulate, it helps the muscles chill out, all of the things, which is one of the reasons that rebuilding pleasure outside of the bedroom, rebuilding your capacity for pleasure, rebuilding your relationship to pleasure as a good thing often helps intimacy come back online inside the bedroom. To really kind of bring this home, I want to talk about a client I was just hearing from the other day who finally had the light bulb moment, right? She was like, I've known for a long time, like intellectually on a theoretical level, that pleasure is good for me. But something shifted in her recently where the light bulb finally went off. And she was just like, oh, yeah, like I get it. Pleasure is not an indulgence. Pleasure is not unnecessary. Pleasure is not an extra that I earn. It is an integral part to me operating as the best version of myself, as a mother, as a spouse, as a human in this world. So she was sharing how like she'll go rollerblading and she loves it so much, but she'll just feel guilty the whole time that she's allowing herself this. Or in the bedroom, they did this sensorium date night activity in the Naked Fun Comeback where they're playing with different senses and smells and touches. And we talk about taking, about being in the taking space where you get to just enjoy while your partner offers things that they've agreed to offer. And she was like, oh my God, like I can enjoy that without worrying or thinking about or burdening myself with whether my partner's bored or whether my partner's into this. Like I get to just enjoy for the sake of enjoying. Now, when we can really internalize that and understand that, can you see how you might enjoy sex more if it got to be something that was totally, fully, absolutely just for you, no guilt whatsoever, at least some of the time? And if that's not been your experience, in particular as a woman, to understand that it's society that has told you that it's that way, not that it's naturally supposed to be, that sex is supposed to be for the guy, right? So this is about understanding what my relationship is to pleasure. Are we besties? Do I hang out with pleasure all the time? Do I know how to access her? Or is she an enemy of mine that I avoid at all costs and I actually feel extremely uncomfortable when I pause and take a moment to do the thing? Right? There's one last kind of element here, or two, I guess. So when we think about our nervous system's capacity for pleasure, and I talk about like being grumpy and not wanting to hear your partner's lame jokes, I'm also talking about your nervous system's ability to enjoy orgasmic pleasure. And this is something that I really struggled with in my 20s. It was a big piece of this. And what I would say is like for orgasm for me for a very long time, felt like I was pushing a rock up a hill and I could get to a certain point, but I could not get it over the edge. And that's because my body would freak out. It did not have the capacity to enjoy the moment of going over the edge. So it would go, we're going over the edge. Shut down, everybody, because this is not good. So my capacity to enjoy that was low. And when I worked with my nervous system, when I healed some trauma, when I worked with the somatics, I was able to open my window of tolerance for that. And I remember the first orgasm I had in my tantric program, which was it's not the first orgasm I ever had, but it's the first orgasm where I could say, oh my God, I had an orgasm. It was just, I describe it as like feeling like somebody poured warm honey over my whole body. And to be able to feel that and enjoy it instead of my body wanting to shut down to it was huge. So there is like a nervous system piece to this that's huge. The other piece is what I call, or what I think of as noticing the good. I did a whole podcast on like parenting tools that can help you in your relationship. And one of the things that happens is we can get very stuck in focusing on all the things that are not going well, especially when we're in the newborn phase or we're in a big change like perimenopause. We are nitpicking on everything that is not going well. We are not having sex enough. We are not connecting enough. We are not doing this. We are not doing that. We are not doing this. And in fact, I was talking to a client the other day who had been sharing wins with me for weeks. This is a guy who started the program alone. He was not sure how willing his partner was going to be to participate. She has been actively doing some of the date nights with him, actively doing some of the breath work, some of the activities, actively engaging in conversation. And he's been sharing with me that there's been a lot of stress happening in their life. And I could just hear, the brain gremlins, the default to the negative bias coming out, where his brain wanted to erase all the really great progress we've been making just because he was in a stressful place and it was turning its eye to the negative things. So when we choose to focus on the good, when we choose to focus on what is working, when we choose to amplify what is feeling good, it's not that we need to overlook what's not working and like Pollyanna it's just that when we do that, we biologically orient ourselves to the good. It changes our perspective, it changes the place we're coming from, it creates more good. So when we're talking about that relationship to pleasure, the questions to ask yourself is like, do you have access to that part of yourself? Or does it feel like white fuzzy TV, like white noise? When you do enjoy things, do you allow yourself to fully enjoy them and get the full benefit? Or are you all constantly feeling just a little bit guilty that something isn't working? Are you noticing your body's biological capacity to let pleasure in? And, if you're struggling with that, I recommend listening to the other podcast episode, Sex and Stress. I'll get my VA to post it here or put it in the show notes because it's an important piece. We can't be in stress and pleasure at the same time, but it means we can choose pleasure in order to ease the stress. Okay. Then the last is noticing the good. This is why, as a whole, right? Curiosity is the name of the game. Instead of saying, I should want this, we want to shift to what would feel good right now? What might feel good right now? Right? Pressure shuts the body down. Curiosity opens it back up. And the couples who rebuild intimacy, and I mean intimacy like the big I, not intimacy, a metaphor for sex, are almost always the couples who learn to stay curious with each other, who know how to cultivate pleasure in their life or re-embrace it again. Because side note, it's also going to make you a better parent, right? So if you are the partner who feels like you don't care about sex anymore, I want you to hear me here, okay? I've been there. You are not defective. You are not failing your partner, and you are not doomed to a life without pleasure or sex, okay? More often than not, your nervous system needs a chance to reconnect with enjoyment again. And that is something that you can absolutely cultivate, and it does not need to take hours, okay? Tonight, you could literally set a timer and choose to do something for 5 minutes that makes you feel good. I do watercolor, I sing, I put a song on and shake my booty. If you are the other partner and you want a gentle, playful way to start reconnecting with pleasure together, then I either recommend the Roommates to Romance Challenge or the Naked Fun Toolkit. The Roommates to Romance Challenge is a 14-day challenge with prompts for one or both of you to just cultivate a little bit more enjoyment, connection, and love with each other without the pressure for intimacy. And the Naked Fun Toolkit is my 4-part framework for scheduling a sex date that does not suck. Both of the links to those will be down in the show notes. They are less than a date night out on the town, and they're going to help you to start creating a road back towards intimacy that is easy, that is fun, that is playful again. Okay. Thanks for joining me today.
I will catch you next week.